Hey there, I'm Emma from English. There are many different ways to express a single idea in English, and these verbs are a good example of that. Knowing the subtle differences and understanding how to use each of these verbs accurately and naturally is a really good sign of the difference between an intermediate student and an advanced English speaker. Because these verbs can all be used in really similar situations. They're synonyms. I suppose it can be confusing to know when and how to use them. I think you know what I mean, right? But I believe that by the end of watching this video, you'll be clear on how to use all of them correctly. I anticipate you'll have some questions, but I'll do my best to answer as many of them as I can. I predict that by the time we get to the mini quiz at the end, you'll have no trouble at all. Let's go. Of all of these verbs, think is the one I'm certain you know and you feel comfortable using. Suppose, believe, anticipate, predict, they can all be synonyms of think. And think has quite a few meanings as well. It can be used in phrasal verbs and other expressions. But if we focus on the meaning that is similar to the verbs we've been talking about, then think means to feel that something is true based on facts or knowledge that you have. So we use it to take an educated guess. I think it's going to be a hot day tomorrow. So I'm making a guess, and it's based on the weather that we've had in previous days this week, and maybe I've seen the weather report. So I'm not 100% confident that it's going to be hot, but I'm using the information that I have to make that guess. And by using think, we're communicating that we're unsure. We're not 100% certain, right? If I was certain, then I would say it will be a hot day tomorrow. Ooh, I think we need to turn left, but I'm a bit lost. Now, if you're a regular student of mine, then you'll know that I'm often talking about how important collocations are. And even with simple verbs like think, it's often the words that are used with it where my students make mistakes. So collocations are words that are commonly used together in naturally spoken English. And with the verb think, the preposition of is often used. When we think of something or someone, we're remembering them, and often keeping their needs or their happiness in mind. Our neighbour is always thinking of us and dropping home-baked goodies on our doorstep. If I think of someone as something, then I have a specific opinion about them. I always thought of him as a great athlete. Or I've always thought of myself as a city person, but I really enjoyed the peace and quiet of the farm. If you think about something, then you're carefully considering it, right? You're weighing up different options to make a decision. I know I said I'd make the offer by the end of the week, but I need more time to think about it. It's a tough decision. Quick note, it is much more natural when you're showing appreciation to someone to say, thanks for thinking of me, rather than thanks for thinking about me. I suppose you've heard this verb before, but I wonder if you are completely confident in how to use it. We use the verb suppose when you generally believe or you think that something is true or possible, but you're not completely sure. So, of course, that sounds very similar to the definition of think, right? Let's look at an example. I suppose he's going to show up late again. He always does. I think he's going to show up again. He always does. So both of these examples are correct. You can use each of these verbs like this, but there is a subtle difference. Think is just a little bit more certain, like you feel that you are right. Whereas suppose suggests that you're not quite convinced of your own feelings. maybe you have some information, enough to take a guess, but you don't really have any solid proof. And when you're using think, well, you might also have some information that helps you feel more confident about your feelings. Maybe someone has said to you that they hadn't seen him in the office all day. Maybe he regularly turns up late. So you're using the information that you've got to confidently take a guess. When you're using suppose, it puts your feelings in a little more doubt. Now, you can also use suppose when you are being sarcastic, when you think that something is true or correct, but you're not really happy about it. I suppose I should finish my homework before I come over. You can also say, I suppose so, as a way to agree with someone. And again, to show that you have some doubts or maybe that you're not loving the idea. Could you help me to edit this report by the end of the day? I suppose so. We use believe when we have an opinion that something is true or that what someone is saying is true, but it doesn't have to be an opinion based on fact. It can simply be something that you feel is true. I believe that we'll find the right person for the job. We can't give up yet. So again, it's a synonym of think, right? So the differences are really subtle. But like the verb suppose, when we use believe, it does sound a little less certain. However, it is a verb that has power, like you trust in your instinct, you feel that you're correct. But perhaps you don't have the evidence to support it, but you do have your faith or trust that it will be. Now, believe is a verb that can be used and is often used in the passive voice. We say, it is believed that. And you'll often hear the adverb widely used as well. It is widely believed that. And that's to emphasize that it's thought to be true by many people. So we use the passive voice when we don't know, or maybe we don't want to say who believes that. So it's a really great sort of collocation chunk of words to learn and practice using together. Now, we use the verb anticipate when we think that something will probably happen. So you believe that something is coming in the future. You can't anticipate that something has happened in the past or the present. We anticipate the future, right? We anticipate our sales will triple by next year. So if I say that I believe our sales will triple, well, it's just my own personal opinion or my feelings, right? However, if I use the verb anticipate, well then I usually have some kind of information or facts to back that up. I've got reasons to believe that something is going to happen in the future. And when we anticipate something, we usually prepare ourselves to deal with it too. We know, or we think that we know, that something is coming, so we can prepare for that moment or that event in the future. I anticipated the test would be difficult, so I studied extra hard. Ooh, it's a good thing that we anticipated such a large crowd and provided the extra parking. And last but not least, we use the verb predict, which is actually quite similar to anticipate because we use predict to guess or to explain what we think will happen in the future before it actually does happen. But the very subtle difference is that we use anticipate when the event that will happen in the future is going to happen at a specific time. And we usually use predict when the event will happen further into the future or we don't know what time it's going to happen. Scientists predict that machines will be quicker in learning and predicting the future than humans. But we could equally say, we anticipate that machines will be quicker and faster at learning than humans by next year. Now, remember that in many situations you could use several of these verbs correctly, but the meaning of each of those sentences would be slightly different. Let's just look at a comparison. She believes that 2021 will be a great year. She predicts that 2021 will be a great year. She thinks that 2021 will be a great year. She anticipates that 2021 will be a great year, and she supposes that 2021 will be a great year. So all of these sentences make sense, but there are some really subtle differences. In the first example, by using the verb believe, well, it doesn't sound very factual, right? She might not have much information to back up that belief, but she has faith. She has the feeling that 2021 is going to be great. So in the second example, she not only believes, but she's told someone that she believes. She's announced her belief, right? In the third example, if she thinks that 2021 will be great, then she's formed that opinion based on some information. Maybe she's considered some facts or some ideas, right? We know that coronavirus vaccine is coming, right? So we think next year is going to be better. When we use anticipate, well, we can assume that she's planning for 2021 to be great. She's based her belief on some information and she's organizing or she's preparing everything to make that happen. In this example, think and anticipate can be used pretty interchangeably, but anticipate is definitely a more advanced way of expressing that idea. It also suggests more specific and more formal language. And lastly, well, she's got some doubts about 2021 being great. She's not sure. The facts and the ideas, maybe they suggest that it's going to be great, but she's not totally convinced. So she's really expressing her doubt by using the word suppose. Suppose it's going to be good. All right, as always, we've got a little quiz to help you test what you've learned. Are you ready to get started? I've got some sentences for you, and I want you to do your best just to pick the best fit for the space. Don't forget that you need to change the form of the verb to make sure that the sentence is correct. So that might mean conjugating the verb so the grammar's accurate. Most of these examples are really common expressions or collocations where one verb fits better than the others. So think about the meaning and the intention of that verb first, and look for clues in the prepositions and words around that verb, those collocations. Where not, any major issues will be raised at the meeting tomorrow. Anticipating is correct. Everybody likes her and, highly of her. Now the clue is here. Thinks. If you had asked me to, how I would spend the year 2020 last year, I would have been wrong. Predict. Since you have been so good today, we can stop for ice cream on the way home. Suppose. After watching a few sci-fi documentary, he now, in Aliens. So again, look at that preposition for a clue. Believe. You're right. So, how did you do? Tell me down in the comments, especially if any of them were quite challenging for you. And can you think of any other synonyms of the word think? If you can, share them down in the comments below. There are definitely a few more to explore. I love that you have stuck with me all the way through to the end of the lesson and you've done the hard work. You're awesome. Well done. And if you haven't subscribed to the mmmEnglish channel yet, well, hit that button down there and do it. You don't want to miss out on any more lessons, right? Speaking of more lessons, we've got one pronunciation lesson right here, ready to go. Let's do it.